Hi everybody, today is Thursday, November 3rd. So today we are in day 4. So go ahead and log into Amplify and you're going to go to your workspace, log into your day 4, read your message. And I want to tell you that there's 2 other things. There's a project summary deliverable and this explaining tsunamis at home. We are not going to do those today. If that's something extra that you're interested in and you want to do it, that's totally fine. But we're going to just read the message for day 4. And then, so go ahead and take a minute to do that and then start the video again. All right. So you understand today we're going to be looking at tsunami warning systems. And I want you to take a minute and remember what our 3 criteria are. Today is the last day that we are researching. Tomorrow we're going to start working on your plans. And so it's very important that you remember your 3 criteria. First of all, we need to maximize the average warning time. We need to minimize false alarms. And above all, we need to keep the cost low. Okay, so because of your choice of sensors is going to affect how your design meets this criteria, you need to learn about how each type of sensor functions. I'm going to skip that real quick. You're going to go to your chapter 4 in your dossier. Go to chapter 4. It's page 10, 11, and 12. And I want you to read and annotate pages 10, 11, and 12. Do that and then come back and I'm going to help you fill out a worksheet that's going to help you compare and contrast. So hopefully you have read and annotated, and I'm going to show you. This is the sensor analysis worksheet that we're going to use. It's kind of a data worksheet where we're just going to compare and contrast all 3 of these. Now this is in today's folder in Schoology, so go ahead and put this in Good Notes and then just follow along with me. You might want to do like a split screen, or you may need to watch what I have, like watch me and then pause the video and add it to your worksheet, whatever works best for you. Okay, so go ahead and put that in Good Notes. And then let's get started. We're using the information from the paragraphs on pages 11. And then on page 12, if you remember, there was this summary of sensor characteristics. And so we're using some of those characteristics. Okay? So earthquakes sensors. First of all, they are best for detecting earthquakes. They can be placed on land, water, and like in the deep water as well as the shallow water. Okay, so when you're thinking about tomorrow, when you're going to start placing your sensors, if you want to use an earthquake sensor, you absolutely can, but know that it's only detecting earthquakes, and you can place it anywhere you want to. Couple pros, some really good things about an earthquake sensor. Number 1, they can be used anywhere, which is beautiful. They have a very quick response. In other words, they have a short delay time. That's good for us because a quick response means that the people of Sri Lanka have a longer warning time. So that's very good for them. And then lastly, they rarely break. So any cost that you might have for fixing them has decreased because they just don't break that much. So that's really good. But all the sensors are going to have some cons as well, some things that are not great about them, and you need to keep that in mind as you're thinking about which sensors you want to use. So one of the cons for the earthquake sensor is that it actually does not detect tsunamis. There's no way that it can. And so if we're looking for a sensor to detect a tsunami, then that's not necessarily, we don't want to go to an earthquake sensor. But that does not mean you shouldn't use an earthquake sensor by any means. You may decide that that's actually a really good sensor for you to use. You just need to know where you're going to place it on your map. Another con is that it's not reliable because of the false alarms. There's a lot of false alarms that can be generated with an earthquake sensor. And so what that means is an earthquake goes off, let's say every time an earthquake goes off, then it might send false alarms. And so the people of Sri Lanka are going to get really annoyed. not happy and may ignore warnings from now on if you have a lot of false alarms. And then lastly, I'm using these dollar signs to kind of represent the cost. So an earthquake sensor, depending on where it's placed, if it's placed on land, it's not that expensive. But if it's placed in water, it can get very expensive. So that can be a con. If we want to make sure that we're watching the costs, we need to be aware of that. So remember, I'm not telling you not to use an earthquake sensor. I'm just telling you you need to be aware of the pros and the cons and really be aware of where you want to place this. Okay, the next sensor is a shallow sensor. And these are best for detecting any tsunami, so local and ocean-wide. And they are placed only in shallow water. So pros, they're used to detect surface levels. And what I mean by that is if the surface level increases, so if the height of the water increases, then a warning is sent. So we know that tsunamis are, they have a certain height. And so if we can place these shallow sensors, it says they can place them in the water or they can put them under a pier. That would be very beneficial because if the water rises to a level that's not normal, then the sensor gets sent immediately. Another pro is that these are actually very inexpensive. They don't cost a whole lot of money, so it's very good. Now, a con would be that it can send false alarms for local tsunamis. What I mean is, if you have an area where you know it was an earthquake that was caused by a local tsunami, and you place a shallow sensor within those rings, then it's going to send an alarm to Sri Lanka, and the tsunami won't reach Sri Lanka. So then we've got a false alarm. Another problem is that it occasionally breaks. So that means you've got to incorporate costs for repair and possible replacement. And then lastly, there's a long delay here, which is not good for our people of Sri Lanka because it makes the warning time less. Lastly, we're going to look at the deep sensors. So a deep sensor is best for detecting tsunamis, both local and ocean-wide, and it can only be placed in deep water. Okay, pros. So a deep water sensor detects a change in the ocean's pressure. It's very reliable. So as the tsunami wave passes over the ocean floor, the change in the water pressure is detected by the sensor, and that sensor sends a warning very quickly. It's very reliable, has a short delay time. So that means it's an increase for the warning time for our people of Sri Lanka, which is very good. Now the cons, it can also send false alarms. So if you're looking at a local tsunami, it's going to send that alarm even if the tsunami does not reach Sri Lanka. And so that's not good. We don't want to send false alarms. That's for locations not at risk. It can also send a false alarm if it's placed near an earthquake. So let's say we have an earthquake that doesn't even cause a tsunami, but the deep sensor detects that change in pressure, and so it sends the alarm. That would cause a false alarm. Lastly, a con, it is very expensive. So again, I'm hoping you're understanding that just because we have pros and cons for each one of these sensors, it doesn't mean you shouldn't use any of them. It means you're going to have to really be thoughtful about your combination of sensors that you use. And in order to kind of help you think about problem solving, I've got some scenarios that I'm going to go over with you real quick. Okay? Oh yeah, they often break. Okay, so I don't want you to open up your iPad. Don't go to the sensors. Don't go in here. I'm going to show you some things that I want to make sure that you understand before you start working in this tsunami alert computer simulation tomorrow. So you know probably by now how to drag your sensors wherever you want to put them. You put them where you want them, and then you hit test. And then this is what you're going to get, your design overview. A lot of you guys are really used to looking at this information, okay? What maybe you don't understand is this information is equally important. So each one of these sensors represents a sensor that was placed in this map. And you can click on each sensor, and when you click on it, then you get this flag that tells you information about how or if information was detected at that sensor. It's very, very important. So let's go through a couple of them, okay? So if I had this, how could you interpret the data in the summary flag for this sensor? Well, first of all, I have an earthquake sensor here. I've got a shallow sensor here. I'm not looking at those. They're not highlighted. They're kind of faded. So that's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about this one here. This is a deep water sensor, and it tells me that I had 0 detections. So 0 tsunamis were detected, 0 false alarms, 0 breaks. At first, you might be tempted to look at that and go, oh, great, I have 0 false alarm and 0 breaks. This is a great one. But it's not. It's actually really bad. It didn't detect any tsunamis, which means this thing's broken. It's not because I've got breaks, 0 breaks. It's not broken. It's just not detecting what it's supposed to. It's not working. The reason why it's not working is, if you remember, deep sensors can only be placed in deep water. And this light blue water is indicative of shallow water, and the darker blue water is deep water. So I need to move this to a deeper water location. What about this one? I want you to look at this for a second. How could you interpret the data in the summary flag for this sensor? So I've got a shallow sensor in shallow water, so it should be fine. But look at, I've got 1 false alarm. I mean, it's great. It detected 5 tsunamis, but I've got 1 false alarm and I've got 2 breaks. That's not good. Something's going on with this. If you look back in your compare and contrast chart, your analysis chart, it says that shallow sensors can sometimes cause false alarms if they're too close to the earthquakes. So what I'm going to need to do is move this. Now, there's a lot of shallow water in this area, and so I can move it anywhere I want to. I just need to get it away from that earthquake. This box is really big, and so you're going to find that you have to really finesse these sensors. And so I would just pick it up, maybe move it over here, down here, over here. I can move it anywhere I want to. I just need to kind of maybe get it away from those earthquakes. All right, look at this one here. So local tsunamis that don't hit Sri Lanka can cause false alarms. Here's Sri Lanka. I definitely had some tsunami here, but it didn't reach Sri Lanka, so therefore it caused a false alarm. What can I do? Well, there's a couple things. First of all, I've got 2 earthquake sensors, and the placement is not necessarily bad, but maybe if I want to move it a little bit farther away from this earthquake. Also, do I need 2 of them? Maybe I only need 1 of them. Second thing I want you to look at is this shallow sensor. So the shallow sensor is placed in shallow, which is great, but this earthquake caused a local tsunami to form, and the shallow sensor is within that local tsunami. So as soon as that water height hit this shallow sensor, it sent a warning to the people of Sri Lanka. What you need to do is, if you know you have an earthquake that is a local tsunami, take this sensor and move it outside of that wave, so that it's somehow not going to pick up that local tsunami. Okay, last one I want to talk to you guys about is, what if I've got a big earthquake that doesn't generate tsunamis? So you've got those written on your map where they're just circles. Okay, what can I do? Well, I've got a deep water sensor and I've got an earthquake sensor. Again, not bad that I'm using those. I just maybe need to not have them so close to this earthquake because it's not generating a tsunami. All right? You guys, tomorrow you're going to start working on your plan, on your on your tsunami early warning system. And I want you to be able to analyze your data. I'm going to be here for you to help you. Don't start at home because you are going to have a data sheet that you're going to have to fill out for each one of these. Let me see if I can pull this up real quick. Oh, I don't have my, I won't show you. My point is, you won't be able just to kind of get in there and play. You're going to have a whole worksheet that you have to fill out, data sheet that you fill out for every single one of your attempts. And so don't just jump in and start working. You're going to have to, you're going to waste a lot of time if you do that. If you are not going to be in school tomorrow, I'll put a video in tomorrow's folder. But if you're not in school tomorrow, I will probably tell you just to wait until Monday, and then I'll work with you individually and we'll get you started, okay? All right, I guess that's it. It's not going to let me go in. So, all right, have a good day. Let me know if you have any questions.